Arsenal is in a transition period for a variety of reasons. With 16 years without a league title and now 4 straight seasons without Champions League football, the club is at risk of missing European football entirely as they sit 2 points behind 7th with 2 games to go. The only other option for them is to win the FA Cup to qualify, but a tough draw against Manchester City means that this is unlikely also. The club went through a similar style title drought in the 70s and 80s, as they went from 1971 to 1989 without winning the league. But for those looking for a mid-1990s Arsene Wenger-style revolution, need to be patient, as this is Mikel Arteta's first managerial job as the head man, and he's inheriting a much worse squad than Wenger did. Consider when Wenger took over, he was inheriting legends such as Ian Wright, Dennis Bergkamp, Lee Dixon, and goalkeeper David Seaman, and Arteta's first full season will be next year, and expecting him to finish third like Wenger did is unrealistic for 2 reasons. The talent in the squad is not the same like we already said, and secondly, the Premier League is much stronger than it was back then, as the top half of the Premier League table is arguably the most competitive it's ever been to achieve top 4 positions. Chelsea and Manchester City are there to deal with in their financial backing, as well as teams with competent managers like Nuno Espirito Santo at Wolves and Brendan Rodgers at Leicester. The jury's still out on Jose Mourinho at Spurs, but as we saw this past weekend, he's still good enough to beat anyone. Arteta is filling out his squad in his first half season, and you can tell based on the number of formation changes. So far as manager, he's run a 4-2-3-1, 4-3-3, 3-4-3, and even a 4-2-2-2. Knowing his DNA and background working under Pep, he wants to control possession, create a ton of chances as close to the opposition's goal as possible, win the ball back as soon after losing it as high up the field as possible, and play out from the back similar to Ederson's role at Manchester City. An explanation for these formation changes is a lack of defensive depth and overall talent at those positions, as Pablo Mari went down injured in the first game back in a restart. I presume Arteta will want to run a 4-2-3-1 or 4-3-3 once he has his players, but since the restart he's been running a 3-4-3 with Bellerin and Tierney acting as the wingbacks and Kolasinac, Luis, and Mustafi as the back 3. The first order of business, as any Arsenal fan knows, is to shore up the back line, so who should go and who should they keep? First, Arteta said he wants to bring in a left-footed center back, and Pablo Mari should be in the mix next season for regular playing time. Free agent center back Malang Sarr has been heavily linked to Arsenal, and he's another left-footed center back to give Arteta options. The fact that there is no transfer fee attached should give Arsenal the green light, but they have to fend off interest from Torino and Atalanta according to reports. He has started 80 games at center back and 26 at left back, showing he could be a backup to Tierney if needed. With only 11 bookings in his entire 119-match career, he isn't a reckless player and is at worst an upgrade to David Luiz. The other player being linked is RB Leipzig's Dayot Upamecano, who despite some inconsistency is having another solid year in the Bundesliga. He would command a sizable fee of around £60 million, and in the past Arsenal has been unwilling to spend big on defenders. It seems to me Arsenal look for the cheapest alternative, and this is the time more than ever to spend big on a centre half. Since the 16-17 window, the club has spent £36 million on Mustafi, £2 million on Rob Holding and Greek centre half Konstantinos, a free for Steve Kolasinac and Stefan Lichtsteiner, £14 million on Socrates Papastopoulos, and £7 million on David Luiz. Just recently did they spend $27 million on youngster William Saliba and $24 on Kieran Tierney. Both of the latter will feature prominently into Arsenal's future, and the other names I listed should not, besides Konstantinos, who might be loaned out anyway. Saliba, on loan at Saint Etienne this season, had a fine season and would be in contention to start at the beginning of next year. Of the guys Arsenal should keep at the back, my list is Saliba, Tierney, Mari, Luis, who's already signed a deal so I have to put him on here, Cedric Suarez, who we still haven't seen a lot of but looks capable, and Konstantinos, who looks set again for another loan move out to Germany. Guys like Kolasinac, Mustafi, Ainsley Maitland-Niles, Socrates, Rob Holding, and Callum Chambers need to be overhauled, as they have proven they are not the caliber of player Arsenal needs. Both Pep and Klopp did a serious overhaul their first few windows at the club, and Arteta can't be afraid to do the same. Eventually David Luiz needs to be sold or let go on a free somewhere else as well, but I understand keeping him around for a veteran presence. The biggest debate will be centered around Hector Bellerin, who at some points in his Arsenal career looked sharp and explosive, and at other times has been criticized for being unfocused and having poor positional awareness. But if a big offer comes, I would sell, but given the market at the moment and him having to compete with Cedric Suarez at worst gives you squad depth, and I wouldn't want to lose 2 right backs in one window if I'm not linked with another replacement as a backup, or a potential starter. Signing a top-class right back will be a priority in the coming windows, however this isn't the most pressing need that they have. Hopefully, with at least one of these signings, it looks like this. Tierney, Sarr, Saliba, Mari, and Suarez at right back, and if Arteta opts to stay with 3 at the back, a role that could be suited to Saliba with his excellent passing ability, then it would look like this. Tierney, Sarr, Mari, Saliba playing as the right center half, and Suarez at the right wing back. Luis will also play and likely start over Saliba at first, in my opinion, but this is what I think it should be. Ideally, one of these spots would be Dayot Upamecano, but I'm not confident Arsenal will pay up for him given their transfer history. Looking at the midfield, there are some encouraging signs looking towards the future. The first order of business is making Dani Ceballos' loan from Real Madrid into a permanent deal, because someone who's confident on the ball and can spring the attack forward can provide midfield stability, and at age 23 has a chance to be a fixture in the squad for years. Madrid will rightfully ask for a high fee, and this comes down to the crux of Arsenal's issues, one Arteta was sure to mention in his last press conference.
Is it realistic with your resources and the situation that Arsenal can be challenging for the title again in 4 years' time?
I don't know, to talk about 4 years in football, it's almost impossible. You have to see a trend, and you have to see movement, and you have to see that the direction you are taking is the right one, and you are making progress all the time. At the end of the season, we're going to have to assess where we are in all terms at the club, what's the ambition, and where we want to head in. And in order to do that, whether the ambition and the level is equal, or is not realistic, or is more than realistic. And that's what we have to get a deal on.
He wants to rebuild into Liverpool's model, but says you have to do it with our resources. He says things can change very quickly when you alter the spine on the team, like Liverpool did when you change your goalkeeper, center half, and defensive mid. It's up to the board to spearhead this turnaround, and the player that everyone is talking about for good reason is Thomas Partey from Atletico Madrid. Partey would immediately provide stability in Arteta's dream 4-3-3, granted that Arsenal shore up their defense behind him. But with a 3-4-3, Thomas is comfortable playing with only 2 mids in the center of the park, as he has done so much this season next to Saul in the 4-4-2 Atletico uses. Ideally, this would be Ceballos and Thomas in the center. If the 4-2-3-1 is the preferred formation, it could be Ceballos up higher with Thomas and someone like Xhaka or Torreira back in front of the back 4. With this said, who should stay and who should go in Arsenal midfield? First, I think Xhaka, Ceballos, and Willock should stay with Torreira, Guendouzi, and Ozil leaving. It's clear that Ozil is not in Arteta's plans and has been dealing with another bout of injury troubles, but moving his wages will be tricky. Torreira is just coming back from an ankle injury and is rumored to be one that has to go to raise funds for Partey. If this isn't the case, he should stay, but if it comes down to it, I would sell the landed talent like Thomas, who isn't just a bruising DM, but has the highest dribble success rate and is comfortable working out of the press. Matteo Guendouzi's bust-ups with Arteta and other weird reports lead me to believe he is expendable, and Arsenal should not think twice about selling if he's unwilling to do what Granit Xhaka did to mend fences. If Partey is unrealistic, which according to reports from David Ornstein doesn't look to be the case, then keeping Torreira and going after someone like Porto's Danilo Pereira is plan B. Joe Willock has potential to play a similar role as Dani Ceballos, but needs more refinement to be a regular in the first team selection. And I don't think Arsenal will sign an additional attacking mid, as the return of Emile Smith-Rowe is something that the club wants to monitor. And yes, Mohamed El Neni is getting sold too. Arsenal has spent a bulk of their transfer funds on 3 players, Pierre-Emerick Aubameyang, Alexandre Lacazette, and Nicolas Pepe. Aubameyang has more than proven his worth, with 50 goals for the Gunners and 20 this season, but he's now 31 and is trying to sign a new contract, and with no European football it is unknown how likely he is to stay. Lacazette turns up in big games and is more than comfortable in the natural number 9 role Arteta wants, as he saw him drop deeper against Liverpool. However, his production has now declined each of the last 3 seasons and is 29, and based on the number of starts Bukayo Saka has been getting, it feels like Arteta wants him in the 11 every week. Recently he's been playing Saka on the right in favor of Pepe, but his future to me is as a left winger or a left wing back if absolutely necessary. But selling Lacazette creates a weird dynamic, as Aubameyang has been starting every game under Arteta besides one on the left wing. Who fills the gap of the number 9 if Laka is sold? Is it Eddie Nketiah, or does he move Pierre back to that number 9 role and give Saka and Pepe run on both flanks? The other element to this as well is Gabriel Martinelli, who has been out with a training injury, but has been getting minutes as well. He has 10 goals and 4 assists in all competitions as an 18-year-old, and could win consistent spots next to Aubameyang if Lacazette leaves, or vice versa. You obviously can't lose both Lacazette and Aubameyang in the same window, so Pierre's decision whether or not to extend his contract could lead them to selling him now, but I see a scenario where both can be kept this summer. It's also tempting to see this level of attack with a midfield who can maintain possession and a defense that doesn't undermine solid attacking outputs. The last element to this is what happens on the right flank. Is someone like Saka going to be moved to the right, or Reece Nelson? I know Pepe gets slated sometimes for drifting out of games, taking too long to make decisions, and getting caught in possession. But once Arteta finds his best 11, something Arsenal hasn't been able to do in ages, I feel he will build more chemistry with those around him and be able to better analyze how to get into goal-scoring positions more consistently. We see glimpses of Pepe's potential with strikes like these, and for the criticism he gets, consider he still has 8 goals and 8 assists this seaon. He definitely has a 15-goal, 12-assist season in his locker, and I wouldn't label him a flop just yet. So bottom line, keep Saka, Pepe, Aubameyang, Nketiah, and Nelson, and as in my opinion there's no reason to sell the young attacking players. Find a way to get Martinelli more minutes next season and sell Lacazette if it means getting better defensively. However, I feel like the club has enough money where they don't need to lose him in order to improve at the back, but time will tell. The last bit of this is goalkeeping, which if anything has been a bright spot for Arsenal this season. Leno has kept several 2-0, 3-1 loss score lines from looking much worse and be better behind a stout back four. Emi Martinez has been a revelation since Leno was injured against Brighton, and is more comfortable with his feet than Leno is. This reminds me of Pep's first year at City. Joe Hart was the best keeper in the squad, but didn't fit Pep's sweeper keeper necessity, and thus Willy Caballero was given more game time. Leno is better than Martinez, but I wouldn't be surprised if Martinez got more minutes to open next season. Down the road, Arteta hopes to bring in his Ederson, if he gets his wish. So, in totality, here's what the 11 could look like next season. Arteta isn't dancing around his concerns. Twice in the last week he's put pressure on the board to spend.
Do you think you'll have the finance that you need?
I don't know.
Is that not a concern?
Big concern. Because you just have to see how they build those squads. And there is no magic. You need to improve with quality players, the squad. And you need bigger squads to compete in this competition.
Arteta has also said he's talked with his sources and that players will still want to play for Arsenal, even without European football. For Arteta and the club's future's sake, he better hope both his proclamations come true.